Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Bank of Utah Initial Research Show. If the tournament does not sound familiar, do not fret. This is a new sponsor for what was called the Black Desert Championship last year. The Black Desert Championship was a new event for the FedEx Fall last year. So second year in a row at Black Desert Resort in Irvins, Utah. Been a couple of weeks since we had our, quite honestly, just absolutely pathetic performance at the Bay Current. I don't think I got anything right. Kurt Kitayama was very middling. I told you to play no Xander. Xander wins the championship. So you can tell just from that how my Bay Current went in terms of outright wagers in DFS. So we're going to try and get back on the right foot as we reach the final stretch of PGA golf in 2025. We've got, I believe, 4 or 5 events left, which always culminates at the end of the year with the RSM. So we're here for the Bank of Utah. We have a lot to get into. So let's get into it, shall we? All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I place research on Mondays regarding some course information, patterns of previous winners, things of that nature. Probably won't be able to do anything for the Bank of Utah. If I do, it'll incorporate the top 5 or maybe the top 10 if I see any patterns among those players. But with only 1 year of data, we're still trying to establish some patterns and see how the Black Desert Resort plays. So normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So if you want to see the players I'm wagering with my own money, players I'm using most often in my lineups, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a fantastic article called The Fringe. I can't recommend it enough. He is taking the fall off to make some enhancements to The Fringe. So I'm very, very excited for that. Really enjoyed working with him. We're going to be bringing back the we're going to be bringing back the picks challenge for 2026. So we have a lot in store for you all. Make sure you're subscribed to his article and go follow him over on social media. So show him some support as well. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. How was your Bay Current? I really hope you didn't listen to a damn thing I said about the on the Bay Current. Rico Hoey played well, so I might have gotten 1 or 2 things right, but mostly it was not very good. So how was your Bay Current? Any success that you've had outside of golf wagering, whether that's fantasy football, playoffs for baseball, maybe you're into hockey, things of that nature, feel free to jump into chat. Let me know of any success that you've had. I'd love to be able to shout out members of the community who have success in any wager endeavor that you have partaken in. Does not have to be PGA exclusive. So feel free to jump in chat. Let me know how that has been going for you. And what do you know of Black Desert Resort in Utah? Who do you think is your favorite early on this week? All of that. So put your thoughts and opinions into chat. And if you're not able to catch a show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's do our initial research for the 2025 Bank of Utah Championship. And we're going to start, as we always do, on a Sunday evening at the GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet. We are in Irvins, Utah, as I mentioned. Black Desert Resort. This does sit at elevation, so do not fret when we start getting into yardages and things of that nature. This does sit at elevation. There's a lot of contouring to the course, a lot of blind uphill shots and scenic downhill shots. So you are in the mountains of Utah this week, so just be aware of that. There will be some calculations that have had to have been done before the week and during the week when players are playing. Black Desert Resort. This says the Black Desert Championship. This is technically the Bank of Utah Championship. This is a Tom Weiskopf design with Phil Smith. Tom Weiskopf has had his hands on a few courses around the PGA Tour. Nothing in Fantasy National that we can look at for Tom Weiskopf. He is not an architect filter available to us, but this is a Tom Weiskopf design, opened in 2023 to prepare for not only PGA tournament play. I'll skip ahead here to a note that the LPGA has played here as well. So this was designed specifically for high-level tournament golf, and I was pretty pleased. It was a scenic course. It was fun to watch last year. Looking forward to that again. Some more specifics on the course. This is a par 71, measuring 7,421 yards. So normally that would be a long course. I'm not going to use any long course filters this week, since this does sit at elevation. So the yardage is going to be misleading. It's going to play decent bit shorter than 7,400 yards. I am going to have to cheat here. I think this is a traditional par 71. 1 par 3, 2 par 3s. Yeah, 3 par 3s, 4 par 3s, and then 3 par 5s. So my apologies, I just couldn't remember. So this is a traditional par 71, meaning 4 par 3s, 3 par 5s, measuring 7,400 yards. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Hopefully you had a successful Bay Current Championship over in Japan. I did not. I was joking during the intro that I hope you didn't listen to a damn thing I said. I feel like I didn't get much right at all. Rico Hoey played well, but I was completely off of Xander. He wins. Kirk Kitayama, very middling. Was not a good week for me. So I hope you had success. One lineup in the DP tourney last week. Very good. So I'm assuming that means you came out pretty well in that regard. I don't do anything with DP World Tour, so congrats on your success with that. And then hopefully last week and Ferguson withdrew. Yeah. That'll tank some lineups. That'll tank some lineups. But as we get to the final stretch of PGA golf in 2025, we're gonna try and turn it around. We have about a month left, maybe even a little less, of PGA golf, always finishing with the RSM Classic down in Georgia. But this week, obviously, we're in Utah for the Bank of Utah Championship. I know it says Black Desert, but you'll see Bank of Utah this week as a sponsor. Black Desert Resort has these 007 bent greens, and we've seen that a couple of times now, specifically at Colonial. So particularly tomorrow night in the Data Dive show, we might take a look at some putting at Colonial to see just how similar the greens putt, because those greens are generally pretty lightning fast as well. I don't think these were lightning. They were fast, but not lightning last year. But in terms of in terms of specific green surface, this 007 bent. But we're looking at bent greens. We're looking at bent throughout the entirety of the course. Mostly the fairways are bent. The difference being this rough is Kentucky bluegrass, but it's kept very, very short. As you see there, 2 inches long. Just very, very short rough. Not difficult to play out of. Not very deep, not very thick. So players, I'm going to assume, are not worried about being in the rough this week. Some more info regarding the Black Desert Resort. Greens, pretty darn large. 7,000 square feet. Average tour green on the PGA Tour, or average size green on the PGA Tour, roughly between 5,500 and 6,000 square feet. So these are pretty large greens here at Black Desert Resort. A lot of fairway available, 51 acres of fairway and only 25 acres of rough. There's really not a whole lot of rough here. Think TPC Scottsdale in that regard, where you might have a ribbon of a ribbon of rough, but you just really kind of get into native area pretty quickly here at the Black Desert Championship or Bank of Utah Championship. So not a whole lot of rough, not a whole lot of bunkers either. 44. Again, the main defense of the course is really the elevation, and the elevation changes throughout the course, in the native area around these holes. There is 2 holes with water in play, 3,000 feet above sea level, as you see, at the highest point. So this course will sit at a decent amount above, or decent amount at elevation. Average fairway width 30 yards, pretty wide, pretty forgiving. Some notable things from last year. There was a fairway bunker added to number 1. Tees added to 1, 3, 10, and 8. So if we look at last year's GCSAA, just to give us an idea of how much the yardage has changed. Yeah, so you see here 73, 71. So with these new tees, they've added 50 yards on the official scorecard. So something to maybe think about. Could have probably just read that there and been okay, but here I am. Golf course, the real unique thing about Black Desert Resort, it's in the middle of a lava field, so you'll see a lot of lava rock around. Let's see. Their big thing is that they have robotic mowers, for what that's worth. But that's a look at the Bank of Utah Championship and the Black Desert Resort from a GCSAA tournament fact sheet standpoint. Again, the highlights: Tom Weiskopf design. He's got a few courses on the PGA Tour, but he does not have a filter in Fantasy National, so we're not going to be looking at anything specific with Course Architect. Traditional par 71, 4 par 3s, 3 par 5s, measuring 7,421 yards, but this is misleading since this course sits at a decent amount above sea level or at elevation, so the yardage will not play to that. We're looking at bent greens throughout the entire course, wide, forgiving fairways, some undulation, some contouring to it, but generally pretty forgiving. And even if they aren't, the rough is not very difficult to play out of. So there's a look at the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. We'll move to Fantasy National. Get a feel for some of the players that are in the field this week for the Bank of Utah Championship. Before I do that, any player that is starred is an alternate at the moment, with the exception of, let me scroll and find him, Sami Valimaki. Sammy has decided not to play this week after originally committing. So he is the only starred player that is a true withdrawal. Everyone else, like Robbie Shelton, Dylan Fratelli, S.H. Kim, Austin Cook on up, if you see a starred player other than Sami Valimaki, they are alternates. But a decent field for the Bank of Utah this week. Decent relative to other FedEx Fall events. Now, the Pro Core had an extremely strong field, considering the 11 of the 12 American Ryder Cup players were there. But most of the time, with the exception of maybe the Shriners in Vegas, the fall events really struggle to attract big name players. Who won this last year? That was Matt McCarty. This was his coming out party. McCarty had won 3 times on the Korn Ferry Tour. I thought maybe they didn't have it. Yeah, so they don't even have his 2024 Korn Ferry Tour stats. But he had won 3 times in 2024 on the Corn Ferry Tour, and then plays the Sanderson Farms, makes the cut, wasn't fantastic by any means, and then wins the Black Desert in his technically third, he did play the U.S. Open, third PGA Tour start. So, he did go nuclear with the putter. You see that. But he generally just played very well. Yes, he went nuclear with the putter, but we've seen McCarty do that. That is kind of his skill set. He is a generally good putter. I don't know where you're getting the minus 12. The winning score was 23 under. So I don't know where you're getting. Last week. Is that at the DP World Tour? Okay. So even he didn't win, but I'm assuming that means he played pretty well last week. If he shot minus 12 with the description of going nuclear, I'll just take your word for it. Like I said, I don't do anything with DP World Tour, but Matt McCarty is our defending champion. But we have a decent field. The one with Xander. Oh, so at the Bay Current, we can check. Kitayama was even worse than I thought. So Xander, McCarty, not in the top 10, top 15, minus 10, top 15. So not terrible. He did go nuclear in round 4. Looked like he struggled in the wind on day 1. Day 3 wasn't very good, but then goes, like you described, nuclear a couple weeks ago in Japan. At least on the last round. So, okay. Something to maybe take a note of. Especially since those were bent greens as well. These are bent greens. So, good catch, Phil, in that regard. Maybe something to look out for. Decent field. Matt McNeely, Kurt Kitayama, Thor Bjornsson, Emiliano Grillo, Seabez, Alex Noren. Again, defending champion Matt McCarty. It's a decent field. Understand what I'm trying to say here. It's a decent field. By no means is it a elite field or even a good field. It's decent for what the FedEx Fall is. Just understand what I'm getting at there. So there's a look at some of your top players in the field this week in terms of recent performance in 2025. If we take a look at the course breakdown in Fantasy National, we see that we had a pretty darn easy event last year. Right off the bat, first hole played right at par, but it was only the 7th most difficult. So that tells you right there that it was on the easier side. And then if you look, there was one very difficult hole here at the Black Desert Resort last year. The extremely long par 4 11th, 532, played to a quarter of a shot over par. I mean, that's a very difficult hole. But that is being outweighed tremendously by 4 exceptional, you could really argue 5, exceptional scoring chances. Starting with the par 5s, almost a half a shot under par, 6/10 of a shot under par, 2/3 of a shot under par. The par 5s are extremely gettable. At least they were last year at the Black Desert Resort. You also had a drivable par 4 that yielded eagles a bunch, so a very, very easy hole. Another par 5 that was a quarter of a shot under par, quarter of a shot or 2/10 of a shot under par, 1/10 of a shot under par. Just a lot of scoring opportunities around the Black Desert Resort. A lot of the length in the course comes in these par 4s. As I mentioned, the opening hole, 489, 488, and they've added tees to number 1, and I know 10, 13, 519, 532. So these par 4s are pretty darn long. 506. Again, long, but it's a little bit misleading since it sits at elevation. So these are really going to be more like 450 to 500 yard par fours. But very, very easy is how this played last year. We moved down to strokes gained by shot type. The two main shots, approach and putting. Off the tee is significantly outweighing around the green for the top 10s. You move up into the top 5s, much more the same. The putting still dominated in terms of between the four main shot types, but this was still a ball striker's course because of the off the tee. And then we saw this from Matt McCarty. He put the daylights out, but you see he really performed well off the tee. So I'm thinking we're probably going to be looking at off the tee. I just don't know how much around the green is going to matter. Yes, it was a decent factor for Matt McCarty, but you look at your top 5s, they was very, very middling, just slightly above field average. Top 10s, much the same. So we're looking at, again, the three shot types that I normally look at: off the tee, approach, putting. Strokes gained by hole by par for your top 10s. Again, par 5s, extremely important. You just got to score on these. 4s, and then the 3s were really lagging behind. For your top 5s, much more the same. You see how much the par 5s really mattered for the players that finished in the top 5. And then for your winners, for Matt McCarty, he was pretty balanced, but still performed well on these par 5s. We move to hole composition. Two pretty darn short par 3s. 151, which again at elevation plays more like 130. And then 152, again playing about 130. So very short par 3s there. One mid-length and one long par 3. We have not one but two seemingly drivable par 4s. Par 4 320, par 4 322. This one might not be as drivable as you see an eagle percentage at less than 1%. I vividly remember the 14th is absolutely drivable because it's also downhill. But you see this eagle rate at 3.3%. Very drivable here. This one might not be as much for the players this week, but two very, very short par 4s. A couple of par 4s between 400 and 450, and then a decent amount over 450 yards for there, and then 3 above 500. But again, that's a little bit misleading since it sits at elevation, but 532, 519, 506. All three par 5s, in fact, fall between 550 and 600. Approach shot distribution, long irons just due to the length of the course, but that doesn't mean that, 175 and 200 plus is the majority of the approach shots, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily long irons. Again, elevation, different elevation changes throughout the course. They might be hitting 200 approach shots with a 7 or an 8 iron as opposed to a 5 iron for these professionals. So we'll see tomorrow in the data dive just how much the long proximities really, really mattered in terms of performance. Cut line was -4 last year. Very, very easy. Very, very easy. Very, very much so. More scores under par than over par. You had 25% birdies. That is probably one of the highest numbers I have seen in a long, long time. Out of curiosity, I'm just going to check TPC Craig Ranch. That is one of the easiest courses around. I want to see how many birdies are there. TPC Craig Ranch. Yeah, 25%. So this was up there in terms of being one of the easier courses around. And you would expect that with a 23 under winning score. A lot more scores under par than over par. Accuracy, driving accuracy, a lot higher than the average tour event. So again, generous fairways. They're pretty darn wide. Course isn't overly long. Pretty easy to hit fairways here at Black Desert. Greens, very, very easy to hit. Now, if players did happen to miss greens or get themselves out of position, it was not easy to scramble here. So that is one thing we're going to want to make sure we don't ignore approach at all. We want to make sure that the players that we're focused on this week are keeping it, on the planet, because it is not easy to scramble here with all of the lava rock and native area around Black Desert. 3 putts also a big factor. These greens were very, very contoured. Some pin positions were located in some very, very difficult spots next to ridges and such. So putting is going to be a big factor this week as well. Driving distance, because of the elevation, much higher than the average tour event. So you can see driving accuracy and driving distance is higher than the average tour event. That means somebody has to be very, very elite in terms of accuracy or distance to really separate themselves. And then finally, proximity, right at average for a PGA Tour event when a green was hit at 29 and some change. So there's a look at the Black Desert Resort in terms of a scorecard and graphical view. We'll go back to Fantasy National. Let's take a look at a couple of these filters. We're going to first start with easy. This course was extremely easy last year. I do not see that changing. So, when rounds have been easy relative to par in 2025, your top performers in the field this week at the Black Desert: Kevin Roy, Cameron Champ, Aldrich Potgeider, Matt McNeely, Kevin Yu, Taylor Montgomery, Michael Thorbjornsen, Takumi Kanaya, William Mao, and Stephen Fisk. So early on in your wager considerations, when pricing comes out tomorrow, give these guys a decent modicum of a boost, considering they have played very well recently when rounds have been easy. As I mentioned throughout the majority of the GCSAA portion and the course breakdown, I'm not going to do anything in terms of length of course. This sits at elevation, and it barely is over 7,400 yards, so not terribly worried with using that filter. Instead, let's just go ahead and start looking at some of these big picture strokes gained data points, if you will. Your top off the tee players in the field this week so far at the Black Desert Bank of Utah Championship: Rico Hoey, Kevin Yu, Cameron Champ, Jesper Svensson, Pearson Coody, Davis Thompson, Thomas Rosenmuller, Trevor Cohn, Michael Thorbjornsen, and Stephen Fisk. So right off the bat, like, Cameron Champ stands out, Kevin Yu stands out, Stephen Fisk stands out because they're good off the tee. They're good when it's easy, and those guys are generally pretty good with their irons. Kevin Yu has been pretty poor with his irons lately, but Hoey's been good with the irons. Fisk has been pretty good with the irons lately. So, and they play well when it's easy. So take that into note. Your top approach players in the field this week, in the past 36 rounds at the Bank of Utah Championship: Kurt Kitayama, who was very, very poor at the Bay Current. I was very disappointed with him, but he still hit his irons extremely well that week. He just was porous with the putter and around the green. But he still continues to hit the irons extremely well. So I'm probably going to be decently high on Kitayama again just because of the irons. But top iron players: Kurt Kitayama, Ben Coles, Michael Thorbjornsen, Doug Gim, David Skins, Rico Hoey, Thomas Rosenmiller, Victor Paris, Ryan Gerard, and Christian Bezadenhout. Then lastly, we'll take a look at bent putting. Bent. I'm going to leave off the speed filter for now. Yes, they all played fast last year, but it is still only one round of data, so I don't want to get carried away with that. Your top putters on bent greens the past couple years: Takumi Kanaya, Brant Snedeker, Pearson Coody, Cameron Champ, Vincent Whaley, William Mao, Taylor Montgomery, Alex Noren, Ben Martin, and Alonto Griffin are your top 10 in terms of putting on bent greens. Okay, we'll clear those filters, go back to 2025. Let's take a look at a couple other things here just very quickly. Let's take a look at proximity. I'm going to sort on the 200 plus, but we're really kind of looking at both of these. So, like, yeah, Ryan Gerard could be interesting because he's number one from 200 plus, but both 200 plus and 175 to 200 are so astronomically above the PGA Tour average that we'll probably want to focus on both for now. So somebody like Michael Thorbjornsen stands out. Joel Damon, 3rd and 6th at the very long proximities, stands out. Will Gordon, Kurt Kitayama, Antoine Rosner, 8th and 2nd. Somebody to keep an eye on. Jackson Suber has been very good with his longer approach shots. Tom Hoagie to a little bit lesser of an extent. Eric Van Rooyen, 20th and 4th. Kevin Yu, top 25 and then 10th. Cameron Champ, much the same, top 25 and 10th. Carson Young, maybe an honorable mention here. But if you want to sort on each individual one, your top 200 plus approach players: Gerard, Thorbjornsen, Bramlett, Joel Damon, Adam Schenk, Will Gordon, Thorbjorn Olesen, Kurt Kitayama, Rosner, and Chris Ventura. And then the 175 to 200, Davis Thompson, Rosner, Campos. You see, Rafael Campos, this is the only range he's been even acceptable. I'll take that back. He's about field average, 100, 125. Everything else has been very poor, but he's been elite, at least in this field. 175 to 200. Van Rooyen, Norlander, Joel Damon, Carson Young, Cameron Champ, Carl Phillips, Kevin Yu. Only other thing I want to take a look at in terms of data tonight before tomorrow night's deep dive into data. Let's take a look at par 5s, 550 to 600. You think Lipsky is worth anything this week? Let me get through these par 5s and we'll take a look at David Lipsky. It's a good question. Normally not a good putter. Very much in the Doug Gim camp where, irons are his main thing. Interesting question. Your top par 5 performers. In fact, let me make sure I've got all 2025 selected here. Your top par 5 performers this calendar year from 550 to 600. Pearson Coody, Thorbjorn Olesen, Gordon Sargent, Danny Walker, Max McGreevy, Victor Puri, William Mao, Philip Knowles, Hayden Springer, Taylor Montgomery. Okay, let me get to strokes gained, and let's take a look at David Lipsky. I like that question. So, right off the bat, if I narrow this down to, say, last 36, Lipsky has not performed all that well. He's been good around the green. I have my doubts at how much that's going to matter this week. Very, very mixed bag at Bay Current. Very good off the tee. Irons, typically he's a very good iron player, but this is a little bit concerning to have missed 3, or not missed, but to be negative in irons 3 events in a row. And not only that, it is the 3 fall events. Like, you could maybe forgive a little bit more if he had played like the Wyndham and then had only played one time in the fall, maybe working off, some rust. But he's played every one of these fall events, and the irons just haven't been there. Like you see, he can go cold sometimes, and he's not a good putter. Like 7.2, I imagine is probably his best. Yeah, at the John Deere. Now that is bent. He putt well at the 3M, which is bent and POA, but still some bent. Procore bent and POA. Not in love with what I'm seeing here, Phil. At least to start. This is really concerning. He's not a good putter, although he's been putting better lately. What did he do in the Black Desert last year? Missed the cut last year. Not in love with what I see so far from David Lipsky. He does play well when it's easy. That is a little bit of a boost for him, I suppose. Or at least that is when he's at his best. But it's still only, less than a 10th per round. Not good when it's calm. So, I don't know. I've got some concerns there, Phil. Interesting question. Considering the thought process of irons. Because I figured he was better off the tee. He hasn't been in his career, but he has been lately. The off the tee form might be something to take a note of, but this is very concerning. So what David Lipsky did last year, that's a pretty good segue into seeing, yes, it's only 1 year, but let's see of the players in the field this week, how they performed last year. Of course, our defending champion is Matt McCarty. But Stefan Jaeger played very well here, and everyone knows his penchant for just being uber aggressive. So he can go low with the best of them, and his driver can be a very big weapon for him at times. It can also cost him tournaments like it did at the Sony. Not that I'm still upset about that, considering I had a win bet on him. Not upset. Little upset. He plays very well, when it's easy and when it's not difficult, I guess is the best way to say it. But he's been in horrendous form with his driver lately. So, but Jaeger was good here last year. Streelman, Highsmith, Hardy. I believe McCarty and Jaeger were the only ones to finish in the 20s. I think. 23 and 20. Then Lucas Glover at 19. Matty Schmidt's not in this? He is not. Okay, interesting. This might have been a good Matty Schmidt spot. Some other notables here. Bo Hostler, generally a pretty good darn putter on bent, as you see there. So he clearly performed well. And look at that. He actually lost strokes putting on a surface that he's generally really good on. Bo Hostler might be somebody to maybe look at this week, at least early on in your wager considerations, lineups, depending on what his price is tomorrow. Other notables here, Patrick Rogers finished in the top 15. Carson Young popped on a few of these metrics. He finished in the top 15. Rico Hoey top 25. Kitayama was top 25. Players who didn't play well. Dylan Wu made the cut. Vincent Whaley made the cut, but they were pretty darn poor. Sammy Valamaki's out of the tournament, so don't worry about him. Luke List, anytime you got putting as a big factor, not going to be good. Patrick Fishburne missed the cut here last year. A little bit surprising because he's generally pretty good on bent. I thought he was good on bent. Maybe I'm wrong. He hadn't been good lately, though, as you can see. Hubbard. There's Lipsky. Lipsky must have missed the cut on the number if he was just this far from being even. So there's a look at the 1 year of prior performance that we can look at. A little bit of a shorter show. considering we only have 1 year of prior data. But tomorrow we're going to be digging in more into the weeds of the data. I'll have the comparison course file pulled up, see how the Black Desert Resort fared in terms of strokes gained against the other full field events on the PGA Tour. Get an idea of what generally plays well or what played well here last year, and then really try to hammer out who we think we want to focus on this week. So thanks to Phil for jumping into chat. Very, very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Like I said, I hope your Bay Current was tons better than mine and that you didn't listen to a damn thing I said 2 weeks ago in Japan, because my Bay Current was abysmal. So we're going to try and get back on the right track in Utah this week. So for all of the wagers that you made at the Bay Current and in the time since, for all the DFS contests you've played at the Bay Current and in the time since, and until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.